Morning. So I decided that seeing as Easter is around the corner, I wanted to try making hot cross buns. This has been one of my husband's favorite things, and I never really wanted to try it until lately. On when we bought some cake flour, we bought some snowflake cake flour, and at the back of the bag was a recipe for hot cross buns. So my husband cut it out and I decided to use it. I had everything in the house. It's so easy, so simple. You probably have most of the ingredients in your house anyway. So I will put a photo of the recipe in the comments and you can try it yourself. It is such a nice recipe. There's a couple of things that I changed that I was worried about. So it just says spices, like mixed spices. So I used some cinnamon and some allspice. I used 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and 2 teaspoons of allspice. And then what I also did is I added more sugar. I was just worried that it wouldn't be sweet enough. And I think I made the right call because it was perfect. So I just added about 15 grams more sugar than what they say. It's not much, but it makes a big difference. And then the glaze, I did not have caster sugar, so I just used brown sugar, whatever I had. And then for the glaze, I used icing sugar. I didn't have plain icing sugar, so I used some cinnamon icing sugar that we made for donuts not too long ago. So I used that for the glaze and it came out perfect. My husband took some to work and his co-workers also loved them. Another thing that I changed up in this recipe, I didn't have sultanas, so I just used normal raisins that we had at home as well. This recipe is very versatile and you can change it up as you want. I didn't use butter either. I used baking margarine. I used some stork bake and it worked so well. So also just make sure that your raisins aren't lumped together. You don't want too many raisins in there. Another thing that my husband said that he would probably want more raisins in there. There wasn't as much raisins as he thought would have been in there. So next time I make it, I'll definitely put some extra raisins in there. And it's such an easy recipe. The dough is quite sticky, so I did add more flour as I needed it. So just make sure you know that it's going to be a sticky dough. It's quite sticky. I used the dough scraper or the bench scraper just to help me fold it in the flour a little bit easier so it doesn't stick on my hands too much. And it worked well. You can see here that I'm just folding it in a little bit and I'll be putting it away soon. I'm oiling a bowl here. I just used some vegetable oil just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bowl as much, especially like when it puffs up. You don't want it sticking to the bowl. And I just turned it over so the top is also a little bit coated with the oil. And then you cover it with cling wrap. I put it on my bed. It doubled in size before an hour, probably about 50 minutes, 50, and it looked great. I realized that my camera went off when I punched the dough in, and so you won't see that. But here I'm making the glaze. This is what I explained. I didn't have plain icing sugar or caster sugar, so I just used some cinnamon icing sugar here, and then you add your flour and your water with that, and then it'll make a little bit of a batter, and that batter you'll put in to your piping bag. You don't have to use a piping bag. You can use a normal plastic bag and just cut a tip off. You don't have to worry about getting any fancy things for this recipe. It's really such an easy recipe, and I must say I really thought it was going to be very daunting, but it wasn't. It was so easy. As soon as the recipe was done, it made it so much easier. So I had to add a little bit more water here because it was quite thick. You don't want it too thick. So I added some water here to make it a little bit thinner. You kind of want it like a pancake consistency. And then I just added it to my piping bag. So I did this just to prepare a little bit more before the rolls had to be sorted. And this was standing on my counter for a little while before I even used it. And you could probably half this recipe, like half the batter for the crosses, because it was quite a lot. This is where my camera just went out, and you can see that I had already made the dough balls. So you divide it in 12. I didn't use the scale I wanted to, but I didn't. So I just divided them in 12 almost equal pieces, and they came out perfect. My husband said he might have even liked them if they were a little bit smaller. So you could try that and make them 24 little buns, because they do rise quite big. They're a little bit bigger than what you would get in the store, which is quite nice. So I'm just rolling them up so that the bottoms are nice and folded and the tops look pretty. This will just give it a better look overall when you bake them. So the recipe says that you put it into big muffin pans. I did not like the idea of putting them into muffin pans, so I decided just to do them in my big pan, and it worked out well. I didn't have a problem with it. I actually liked it more this way than doing it in muffin pans. But you can decide, obviously. So I just close it with some cling wrap, and then I'm putting it aside again for about 40 minutes just to double in size. You don't really want it to fully double in size, so I took it back just before the double, and here you can see I'm just going to cut my piping bag and then I'll pipe them over. So you'll do them going, remember to take them from side to side, don't just do little crosses on the top. I mean, it's your hot cross buns. You can do what you want, but if you want to achieve the full cross on the bun, then I would suggest to go all the way from the side to the other side. And this is the glaze. I just put sugar and milk together. I didn't actually follow the recipe right here. but it worked out well. And as soon as they come out of the oven, you glaze them with your milk sugar mixture. And then you can just wait for it to get a little bit colder, because you don't want to be burning your tongue like I did. But I did wait a little bit. So you can see here. It is so fluffy and so nice. I'm not a big fan of hot cross buns, but this is a really great recipe. Comment down below if